Hello and welcome to The Hero Spouse. I'm Kendra Ruth, here to answer one of your questions about marriage and midlife crisis. Today we have an anonymous female left behind and forward-moving spouse with a bomb drop of March 11th, 2020, a date of marriage of 2013. She has a clinging boomerang who is a high-energy replayer. She says, "My ex is spending Christmas with us. He says he wants me to wait until he divorces the alienator so that our family can be together again. He wants to do all the family activities as usual. I know you recommended no contact with an exit clause, but this is simply not an option for practical reasons. I can only limit it substantially. Is there anything else I can do? He seems to understand that I cannot bond as family when he lives with someone else, but is still pushing his agenda, such as spending the holidays together, traveling as a family, and visiting relatives." So, first thing, you can't do it fully because of the kids. You have to do everything you can to stay no contact with the exit clause. So there are some things that you do need to put up more serious boundaries on. Is he first already in divorce proceedings with the alienator? Or is he just saying, I'm going to do it and not doing it? Has he separated from her? Anything like that. Next. He should be able to spend time with the kids. And if that is okay for you guys to have a holiday together, but maybe you should put a limit on traveling as a family to visit relatives. Maybe you should put other limits. Now, if he has fully left the alienator, forget where it is in divorce proceedings. If he's fully left the alienator and he has to have contact with her possibly for divorce proceedings, for court and that sort of thing. But if he's fully left her, then that can count as the exit clause. Where are you in that? Now be careful, he's been narcissistic, hasn't he? So what about counseling? He took this to the level of marrying her. Whether he was being coerced and manipulated or not, he did it. Where is he for taking counseling? That's one of your litmus tests to remember, to see if they're ready to take in counseling. Where is he on making amends to you? That sort of thing. And then you have to revise this exit clause to make it fit you. It is going to be a lot different than how I talk about it because of how I did it. Because I didn't have kids, and you do. And he needs to be involved with those kids. And the other thing is, I did not do a great job with my no contact boundary. I wasn't good at it. I had still some contact with Chuck. He emailed me quite a bit on my work email. While I was at work, I would get emails, and yes, I answered them. And yes, since it was work email, I was working. And it would get deep sometimes. Sometimes it was just me saying, I'm not going to talk about this. I could have just not talked about it, right? But this was in the very end. This was at the exit clause when I knew this was the last piece. And some of it was him saying, I just don't get it. I just don't get, why doesn't anybody understand? I just want to be home. And on one of the emails it said, I don't want to buy that car. You're trying to sell me a car with the alienator still in it. The reason you don't get it is because you're still living with her. And you know how you prove that you're ready is you stop living with her. But that means come home. No, it doesn't mean come home. To get to come home, you have to prove you're ready. And you don't prove you're ready by saying you're going to leave her to come here. You prove it by getting out of her, because the thing you need to want the most, other than us, is to not have her in your life. You would rather live in a cardboard box on the street than be with her. And if you're not there, then you're not here with us because you're not ready. And so that was the strength that I wanted within it. But I broke the boundary by just emailing him, right? He emailed me. Him emailing me doesn't break the boundary. Me reading that email doesn't break the boundary. He could be saying, I'm going in for open heart surgery tomorrow. Can you be there? Yeah, there's exceptions. So I read the emails. Me responding, me writing back. That broke a boundary, yeah. I would go shopping at the Costco I knew he was at. Not so I could specifically have a planned meeting with him, but so that he could see me walking down. Just that I was there. Almost, it wasn't a taunt on my part, but it was a like, I'm doing well. I'm going to show him. And it wasn't like I'm showing the best life lived. I would catch a glimpse of him, and there would be the eye contact connection. And every time he saw me, there was this light. He lit up. It was amazing. And it felt good. So I was giving him a me fix. But it was a tiny me fix. Sometimes it was away from far or just him seeing me. But here's another thing I did. I'm going to link to, the article is Covert Reassurance that I wrote a long time ago. And in this, I describe one of the things I did. I would go to Costco and I would take these. I got a little thing of stickers, tiny ones that were like they could fit on a fingernail. And they were hearts, I think, for the most part. Not a sentimental person, but it was it's meant to be a sign and a metaphor. And I would take one heart sticker, a little tiny one, and put it on the steering wheel behind. So not where you could see it. And I would open the car, I'd put that in there. And I didn't think he'd even notice. He said he did. It would be where you could feel it. But even then, you really would have to be running your hand around that steering wheel. He said he noticed. He wouldn't remember it if I asked him now at all. But he said he noticed. And he said it made him feel good. So I was still giving tiny reassurances. I'm still here. You can't see me. If you want to see me, go to the next step. So it was almost like a teasing line that I would give him. So when I say exit clause strict, no contact, that's how not strict it was as well. I still gave him glimpses of me. Sometimes it was a silent glimpse of, I sent him a message by putting a heart sticker. Or I had, I'd already given him a chunky rose quartz heart because I had bought a whole bunch of them on strings. I used them in my art. And it was prayer dolls that I would make. And he had one. He kept it in his pocket. I found that he was keeping it in the truck. I mentioned it one time to him. I don't know at what point when he was home one time or something. He said, yeah, I don't let her see that. And so I noticed he kept it in the truck. And a couple times I went and left another one in there. And he noticed that. It's tiny. It seems really sentimental, but it had a specific message. And the prayer dolls were something I made as part of my development through the crisis. And it was a doll that I was like, okay, Chuck is not here. I know this sounds silly. I am going to make these. They were little gingerbread forms that I just bought at the store. And then I covered them in precious stones on both sides. So they were very heavy. They looked like a gingerbread cookie, but they were very heavy. And I had a specific design. And I would sandwich two of these forms together, and I'd put a message inside. For me, it was glued. You're never going to see it. But it was maybe the date of our wedding. So this prayer doll, that I called them, was to represent Chuck. And I used that as my, meditative icon. Similar to you have prayer beads. And I used that when I would meditate on him, when I would send energy to him, I kept it in my purse with me. It went with me. And it was my representation of Chuck. So it was a really important thing. And the chunky rose quartz heart, one of those was always at the heart place on that prayer doll. So those are the things I still did. In other words, my exit clause, it wasn't perfect. You have to make it work for you. I tried not to let myself feel guilty that I was doing that I was just keeping him little tiny reach outs. Little, it wasn't even a touch and go in the way we think of MLC. It was little reminders. And they were meant to be, those ones were meant to be small because he didn't get to see me at all. And he could even say, did I leave this here? Or has she been in my car? And it was just a silent reminder. So there are things you can do. You need to do what works for you. He's got to see the kids. And if she is completely out of his life, other than what he's required to do legally, which means he might have to see her. It's not his fault sometimes if he has to see her. So we're not going to punish them for things that they can't help. So if Chuck was already back in the affair, but his mother was in the hospital, and the alienator worked at the hospital. Mother was on the cardiac ward. Alienator worked on the cardiac ward. Chuck went there. Turns out they were already in their affair when they'd taken it underground. But suppose they weren't. Am I going to tell him he can't go see his mom at the hospital? That was what brought the affair back out in the light. So he came in and said, I saw her. He did tell me. Then he started the taunt within a few weeks of that. But there are times, maybe they just ran into each other at the grocery store and it was innocent. What's important is when he tells you. And what's the next thing that's important is that we don't punish them for telling us. Because that's why they don't want us to tell it. They don't want us to be triggered. And maybe they tell us, but we get upset, even if we don't get upset at them. But we're just emotional for a day, a week, whatever. Then they're going to decide, damn it, I'm not going to tell her again. And now we think they're lying and keeping secrets. But they're doing it to protect us. And it's this vicious cycle. So that's why we want you to be healthy. And we want them to be able to tell us. And right now, I don't know how separated he is from the alienator. If this is just talk, you need to do whatever you can to keep the boundary as strong as you can. You got kids. But that means that he should not be trying to ingratiate himself as your husband. He's lost the right of spouse. By traveling as the family and visiting relatives with you. You tell him with a reassurance, you know what? That would be great. But you have to finish this. You have to tie up the loose ends with her. And you've said you're going to do it and you haven't. And how much can you wait? Because he was trying to do a nice thing, right? So she could be in country, if I'm recalling correctly. Except maybe she used him for that purpose to get in country. If he can't just cut her off, how long are you going to wait? It's not nice for him to be nice to her when being nice to her is being rude, cruel, mean to you. And she used him. So you have to figure out what he's doing to get her out completely, not halfway. And if he's not, then yes, time with the kids. If you can be somewhere else, great. If you can't, say, we'll do that later. Some of the, like you're sitting on the couch over here, he's over there. You know what? The rest will come later. You still need to be reassuring and yet a little bit aloof with the boundary. It's going to be tough. I don't want traveling as family if you can avoid that. I don't want visiting, at least not him with your relatives. I don't want you to keep your children. If he can take the kids to his family, that would be grand. If you feel you need to go, because if they're accepting of you, if they're supportive of you, that might be great. But you have to determine what works, okay? So don't feel too guilty because you can't do it in the way I did it. And the way I describe it is the perfect thing. The way I did it wasn't perfect. Okay. I hope this helps. Have a happy holiday and good luck with all of your Christmas spending time together and traveling, whatever you do end up doing. Okay? I'll see everybody in the next question.